call the roll.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. The Energy Subcommittee report, since Senator Spruill's not here today, will be given by Senator Lucas for the Energy Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first bill in the subcommittee is Senate Bill 1441, patron is Senator Locke, and it's the development of offshore wind capacity. And the committee has a substitute, but the patron is going to introduce a new substitute. So you might want to call on Senator Locke to present that information.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you should have the substitute. So somebody needs to.
I move the substitute, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor of accepting the substitute, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and the substitute is now before us. Senator Locke?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bill before you will help create jobs, establish Virginia as the East Coast hub for the offshore wind industry, and help Virginia compete for the nation's first blade manufacturing facility. And what the substitute does is two simple things. First, it moves up Virginia's offshore wind procurement timeline by 2 years from 2034 to 2032. And secondly, it encourages the SEC to consider the job creation and economic impact of Virginia-made components in future proceedings on offshore wind. The bill retains the SEC's oversight authority and protects consumers while still incentivizing investment and job creation in Virginia. That's what it does.
All right, any questions of the sponsor by the committee? All right, anyone in the audience supporting the bill? Okay, welcome, Mr. Loria.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Miles Laurie on behalf of Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy. We thank the patron and we support the bill. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any opposition to the bill? All right. Bill's before us.
Anybody on Zoom?
Is there anyone on Zoom?
Those in Zoom who would like to speak on the bill, please raise your hand electronically. There are no speakers, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the bill's before us. Motion and a second to report the substitute of Senate Bill 1441. All those in favor vote yea, those opposed nay.
Ayes 13, no 0.
Ayes 13, noes 0. Bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Locke. All right.
Mr. Chairman, the second bill in the subcommittee, patron is Senator Edwards, and it's a shared solar program, and it's phase 1 utility report. Subcommittee recommends reporting with the substitute, and then was a 3-to-1 vote, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Senator Edwards, where is he here? He's not. Okay.
And Senator Servo.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this bill authorizes a shared solar program in APCO territory. Right now, it's only authorized in Dominion territory. This authorizes it.
Mr. Chairman, I think we probably need to move the substitute.
Okay, I move the substitute.
Okay, all those in favor of adopting the substitute to Senate Bill 1083, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the substitute's before us.
Thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead, Senator Servo, transmit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's relatively close to the Dominion program. I would say it has a smaller megawatt cap, and a smaller low-income program, and I believe it also has a cap on the total number of people that can participate in the low-income program, so the low-income program won't swallow the entire program. And I think those are the primary differences with what we've already voted on and passed on with regard to the Dominion program earlier this session.
Okay.
I can explain it further if anybody has more questions.
All right, anyone in the audience in support of that?
It was already heard, but all right.
Patrick.
Welcome.
Patrick.
Mr. Chairman,
Patrick?
members of the committee, thank you. Patrick Cushing on behalf of the Coalition for Community Solar Access. We support the bill. I've testified on this twice, so I'll just hold remarks if there are any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else in support? Welcome.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Josephus Allman with the Southern Environmental Law Center, and we support the bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, thank you. This is Victoria Higgins, Chesapeake Climate Action Network Action Fund, and we support the bill.
Mr. Chairman, Brittany Whitley on behalf of Apex Clean Energy out of Charlottesville, and we support the bill.
Okay. Any opposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. John Morris at Appalachian Power. As we discussed in the subcommittee, the effect of this bill, the low-income provisions, will result in a cost shift to non-participating customers. So they'll bear the burden of that. That will be on top of what these folks will already be paying for, the utility scale solar that APCO is embarking upon. And I will note that in the energy efficient, the EE sections of the code, there is also, we will be filing in November, a 3-year solar program for low-income folks, not to exceed $25 million. So all of these things will be continued to be put upon the backs of our ratepayers, and that's why we continue to oppose this provision, this particular bill. Thank you.
So you can go into the SEC, and this gets cranked into your base, this cost.
Yes, and at some point, you know, we'll have to, they will determine both a minimum bill, whatever that is, right, as well as the cost shift to non-participating customers.
Is there any estimates made on this bill yet as to what you think it will be?
No, I can't say that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just
Senator Newman.
Just briefly, I think we had a good discussion in subcommittee, and there's a basic fundamental difference in some members here. But I think one thing's clear: this could be a very simple bill if you made sure that all the stranded costs and the other costs just simply didn't go to other ratepayers, right? If you decided to go with this type of solar, you just kind of pay the freight. And the problem is that despite a lot of the guys up here, this is just our area, and some of us live in APCO, but it's just in the APCO territory, and the rates there have gone up about as much as anywhere around, and they're going to go up more with this, so that's the reason why I struggle.
Thank you.
All right, bills before us.
Move report.
There's a motion and a second to report the substitute to Senate Bill 1083. All those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay.
Ayes 11, noes 3.
Ayes 11, noes 3.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the bills in the subcommittee.
Okay. All right. Senate Bill 1217, Senator Mason.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to take about a minute to speak to 1217, and I'll have a different motion. But, Mr. Chairman, to say that I have a high degree of disdain on how this bill would work is about the nicest way I can characterize it. Because it wasn't worked. If you're opposed to this bill, all of somebody running around the halls and said payday lending, payday lending, payday lending, and well, I hate payday lending. And so it's more frustrating when the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau put out a report that they said covered earned wage access program is consistent with the Bureau's discussion of these types of products in its 2017 payday lending rule, where it noted that, quote, some efforts to give consumers access to accrued wages may not be credited at all. For instance, when an employer allows an employee to draw accrued wages ahead of a scheduled payday and then later reduces the employee's paycheck by the amount drawn, there's quite plausible argument that the transaction does not provide credit at all, that it just provides access to the consumer's own funds. So, Mr. Chairman, my initial goal was to bring to you on lines 256 and the next 10 or so requirements and regulations that you could not do if you offered this product that is currently being offered in Virginia. I want you to take a couple of minutes with some of them. Compel or attempt to compel repayment by the consumer of outstanding proceeds. So if the consumer doesn't pay you back, you can't go after them. If you're going to offer this product, you can't use a credit report to determine it. If the person who has taken the small loan from you or this advance from you doesn't pay it back, you cannot turn it over to a credit bureau. There's no civil action in any court of competent jurisdiction. You cannot use a third party to pursue collection, and you cannot sell the outstanding debt to a third-party collector. Mr. Chairman, quite frankly, I was afraid of you making fun of this bill when I first read it, because you can't do anything if the bill is not, if the advanced wage is not paid back. Mr. Chairman, the groups that are opposed to this bill are so concerned about this industry that is existing in Virginia with 32,000 accounts currently that they'd rather study it for a year than to impose regulations on it. I was also told that I had a bill for one company. So what did we do? We said, go out and find the other companies. I have no desire to have a bill that is any regard to payday lending or for one company. So other companies have appeared on the scene. Did they agree on everything, Mr. Chairman and members? No, they did not. But there's been a discussion among multiple companies over the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, the primary opponents to this bill, there has been no discussion other than to suggest it's payday lending. So, Mr. Chairman, with that bit of a rant, I would like to move a substitute. Thank you. And that substitute before you is a whopping, hard-hitting Section 1 bill that asks the Bureau of Financial Institutions, who's been good to work with throughout the course of this entire process, to pull together a group to study it, including people of all ilk, all different employers, the Attorney General's office, to review existing business models, regulations in other states, and to try to determine that, you know what, when we come back next year, Mr. Chairman and members, that we get it right, having studied it with everybody who would like the opportunity to come to the table to discuss it. And that's the bill that I put before you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions of Senator?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Senator?
I'm confused, right? I know you are too.
I really.
Literally, you had a bill that you cannot have any recourse against. When I heard about this, I actually called people I knew and said, did you know this product exists to let poor people get their money early and they can't do anything about it? And they were like, you're kidding.
No.
And they're going to do it,
No.
right? But we can't have the regulation. I guess, Mr. Chairman, if just, I know we're heading in a direction, but I guess the question is to the Bureau, I mean, could you do this, if we told you to do this, could you do the regulation under the regular bill? Do you feel like you need to study?
Mr. Chairman, Joe Face, Commissioner of Financial Institutions with the State Corporation Commission. We're happy to accommodate whatever the pleasure is of the committee. We've conducted studies before in the past.
Could you do it, Mr. Chairman? Could you do it under the current bill? Could you write the regulation and do it as it is without the study?
Are you saying write the legislation?
No, I know, write the regulation
Without the study.
without the study, if the bill went through as it is.
We could prepare regulations if necessary, yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator?
Mr. Chairman, I have some concerns along the same line as Senator Newman. And I'm just wondering what adverse impact would this have on all those poor people who will be looking to secure these loans? That's always my concern.
Well,
it sounds like we're doing a moonwalk here, walking backwards.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Lucas and Senator Newman, as I was sitting at home last weekend trying to avoid this life and watching a basketball game, there was a television commercial advertising this product from one of the competitors saying, do you know you can get an advance on your paycheck? So I saw, I don't know where the feed was coming from, Mr. Chairman, because I don't know what game it was.
Let me ask you a question. The places that have this already, the places that have it already, what's the annual percentage rates?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that's the thing. There are no annual percentage rates. You must have a free option. And the thing that is offensive to folks is there is a tipping model on some of them, that you advance $100 and then you say
no interest.
you can leave a tip. But no, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, listen, first of all, I think I support the study because, number one, there's multiple products out there and they have different ways of doing it, number one. Number two, while the bill doesn't have an express APR, I think if you calculate some of the fees for getting your money 48 hours early turns into an APR, which would be significant if you were to calculate it as an APR. And I believe some of the business models have to do with locking people into a system over multiple weeks, which ends up resulting in a consequence, which is what some of the regulators look at with these things. And I think that's why we need to make sure that, we study this and figure out which model we want to adopt. If we want to adopt this, we adopt the right model. Mr. Chairman, I think that's why this is going to study.
All right, Senator Litter.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do not believe we need a study. I think most of us have a pretty good idea of what adverse impact this will have on low-income people. I mean, I just think this is a bad bill. I think we just need a PBI to bill and let it go away.
Hold on, let's hear from, is there anyone in support of the bill? Well, we haven't,
Well, I have moved to substitute for the study, so I think that's what we're discussing currently.
Nicole?
Unmove it.
All right, hold on. Why don't we hear from her first? Nicole, come up here.
I'll speak in support of either one. So if you want to adopt the substitute, it's fine.
I got a question,
All
Madam
right, the
Chair.
motion for the study is before us.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, I have a question of Nicole. Is there a conflict of interest wearing this badge?
Notice I do. Mine's prominently placed in my office.
All right, the motion for a study, the substitute is before us.
A second.
And there's a second. All those in favor of the study, vote aye.
For the study only.
A study only.
Yes, sir.
And all those opposed, vote nay.
Are you talking about?
Well, that's nay. We did adopt
Well,
it.
that's what we're just doing. That's what this is.
Substitute's been adopted.
Yeah, we did. So, so the substitute now, there's been a motion to report the substitute.
So moved.
All right,
Just for clarification, Mr. Chairman, the substitute will just move the study forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, not pass the bill.
Mr. Chairman. Senator
well,
Lewis.
you want to hear from you? It's okay?
She's
All right,
Well, if no,
go
Nicole,
ahead. All right, all those in favor of reporting the study to Senate and substitute to Senate Bill 1217, vote aye. Those opposed, nay.
that's for the study.
That's for the study.
All right.
Ayes 14-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
That was better than the PBI.
All right, 1301. Senator Deeds.
I'll be quick with this one.
Mr. Chairman, having voted on the prevailing side where we passed that last bill, can we reconsider? Because I think we had witnesses who actually wanted to speak on that. We never got to hear from them.
All right. Having voted on the prevailing side by which we reported substitute to 1217, Senate Bill 1217, all those in favor of reconsideration, vote aye. All right, the bill, okay.
Ayes
All
14-0.
right, the bill is before us.
You okay with me going?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Nicole Brenner with Reed Smith on behalf of Ernan. I'll start by answering two of your questions. Mr. Chairman, I heard from Senator Sorrell a concern about canceling participation and that you might be locked in. Senator Mason's introduced legislation would have allowed you to cancel participation in an earned wage service at any
Get
time.
closer to the mic.
Yep. Would have allowed for you to cancel participation in an earned wage service at any time. And as to whether or not other states have required an APR disclosure, usually that's a federal question as to whether or not it would be required under TILA. It is not currently required because it would be zero, which would likely be more confusing to the consumer. Tips or an expedited delivery fee, which is what you're talking about as the only optional payments here, aren't interest. There are no finance charges, so there is no APR to disclose, which is why the state of California, in its regulations, are not requiring an APR disclosure.
Okay.
I do want to thank the patron for bringing forward this legislation. We look forward to continuing the conversation in whatever form this bill takes. I'm speaking on behalf of one of the providers of earned wage access services with 2 million customers last year. This industry, which allows employees to access wages that they have earned and that are owed to them before their scheduled pay date at no cost to the employee, has been in existence for 10 years and has grown significantly in the last 3 to 4 years. This service is in use by employers such as Walmart, Amazon, Home Depot, and McDonald's, as well as a number of small businesses in Virginia. While we are certainly open to continued collaboration, we think that the industry is ripe for regulation and would note that the introduced legislation had been vetted by the Bureau of Financial Institutions and provided a number of important consumer protections that otherwise are not in place. To name a few, the legislation prohibits the provider from pursuing civil action against the consumer. They cannot require a credit score or report to a credit agency. They cannot send the consumer to debt collections. They cannot change or limit the amount of wages that are available based on any payment they receive by the consumer. They must also clearly provide a no-cost option to access these wages, and any payments by the consumer are required to be optional, and the legislation limits what those can be. Because these are not loans, there are no late fees, finance charges, interest, or recourse against the consumer. There is not a license that EWA providers can currently obtain. I understand the legislative process and would support the bill moving forward to continue the conversation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Senator Norman.
Nicole, I am never hesitant to express my ignorance, which is vast. I'm really not conversant with these. If I'm an employer and I provide an advance loan to my employee of $100, how much am I expecting to be paid back to me?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Norman, I'll answer that question with two different scenarios. If you were adopting the substitute that the House moved forward with, there's an exemption for employers who are doing a paycheck advance directly to their employees. That's not what this legislation is intending to capture. If you were an earned wage access provider, like Earnin or the many other providers that partner with employers or do this service directly, you are expecting that $100 back.
Mr. Chairman, if I'm one of these providers and I am intending to provide $100, am I really providing $100 or am I providing $100 less in amount?
So what happens logistically, I think maybe that this might be how I need to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, Senator Normant, is that if I'm an employee at Home Depot and I log into the Earnin app and I say, I've worked, today's the 6th, 4 days since I got my last paycheck, and I would like to access $200 of that wages. And I say, I want it in my bank account right now in the next 30 minutes, and I don't want to wait the 1 or 2 days for a bank transfer. Waiting for 1 to 2 days for the bank transfer and accessing the $200 of your wages that you are owed and have worked is not borrowing. That money is owed to you. Your employer holds it in arrears. So that would not cost you anything. You would get those $200. If you wanted it in your bank account in the next 30 minutes, like when you're transferring money from Venmo to your bank account, you might pay an expedited delivery fee, which with my client is no more than $4. Obviously, I can't speak to others in the industry, but that is an example of one of the types of fees that you are permitted to pay under this model as long as there is a 100% free option provided to you.
Mr. Chairman, last question, please, sir. If I don't repay that loan, can it be a basis for termination of my employment?
No, sir, it cannot. Well, I won't speak for your employer, who in the case of my example is Home Depot, but no, sir, the intent here is that you just would not be able to access the service again until you repaid that amount.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. It sounds like, Nicole, that the employee basically uses your employee, your company, as a bank. And it's saying, I've worked for two days of the 6 days, I won't get paid till next week, but I want the 2 days to be paid now. And so the employee has got to use your entity as basically a bank. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Edwards, I understand what you're saying in that you receive money from a bank like you might a typical lending product. How this is different is that this is only when you have worked those hours and you have earned the money, and so you're not borrowing And that's why the CFPB has said this is not the provision of credit. It's your money. Your employer is just in the habit of running payroll once or twice a month. And for a lot of employees, that doesn't line up with when their bills are due. And so this helps them avoid overdraft and late fees on bills.
Yeah, I understand that, but the employee basically is using your company like a bank. I mean, it's your employee's bank, really, who's advancing the funds that you've already earned, but is not yet received from the employer. Or is it like accommodate the employer and the employee are both using your entity like a bank?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Edwards, I would agree that that means we should be regulated.
Well, how do you do it without being regulated?
I'm sorry?
How do you do it without being regulated?
Right now, the industry is operating. We had 35,000 customers in Virginia last year.
What's the name of your company?
Earnin.
Okay, all right. One more.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a quick question?
All right.
I'm trying to get familiar about these services. Do they offer any other benefits for a customer other than early access, like financial planning, budgeting? I mean, is that the only thing they offer for the fee?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Senator Bell, Earnin does provide financial planning tools and budgeting through its app as well. I think sometimes the transition from being an independent contractor, if you're driving for Uber or DoorDash every day, you can get access to that money every day. And if you get a job at a place like Walmart and you're waiting 2 weeks, that's a difficult transition. So there are tools to help you plan for those changes.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much. My name is Clark Worthen. I'm an Associate General Counsel at Daily Pay, which is the nation's largest provider of earned wage access services. I will dispense with most of these remarks and just speak to why we believe the study versus the bill as originally introduced as what the industry needs. Nicole did a wonderful job describing a lot of the basics of what earned wage access is and a lot of the wonderful benefits that we provide to our users, which I will briefly interject. Our Daily Pay alone, over 1.2 million customers took early transfers with us just last month. And we operate in all 50 states with over 800 businesses, over 800 employers. So a lot of folks find value in the service, and a lot of folks use this service when they need a portion of their pay before payday. The reason that we are in favor of the study versus the bill there are a vast number of different ways to approach providing this service. Earnin is a direct-to-consumer product. We, Daily Pay, again, the largest provider of this service, are an employer-integrated model where we work directly with your employer. So we are fully integrated and have access to their timesheets, payroll information, and we work with major employers, Target, Kroger, McDonald's, just to name a few. So we are fully integrated in the employer and know within a few minutes of the end of your shift whether you have in fact worked it. And whether we're in a position to provide you access to some of your funds before payday. The reason I mention that is these different models have very different ways of earning revenue, different fees, different end consumer risks, to be totally blunt. So there are two main points that Daily Pay, again, the largest provider, that we feel need to be explored, and we look forward to continuing to do so with Nicole's client, with other players in the industry, because we've mentioned Earnin and Daily Pay, but there are a number of other providers out there that, again, do this different ways. But fees and consumer protections are two things that we think are critically important to this bill moving forward and need to be done right if we're going to have if we're going to lead the nation, if Virginia's going to have the first law out there, we need to make sure that we've got enough voices at the table and enough feedback from groups to get that done right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am struggling to grasp that this is an altruistic business. Where do you make your money?
We make our money if you were to take a transfer and have it, as actually Nicole mentioned, it's very similar across a lot of providers. If you want those funds,
where do you make your money?
We make our money off of immediate transfer fees. So if you take that money, you need it within the next 30 minutes. We would charge a $3.49 or in some cases a $2.99 flat fee per transaction. we view that akin to as an ATM fee, or again, as the prior speaker mentioned, akin to what Venmo charges as well, if you need the money immediately. If you can wait one day, you can wait a business day, there's no charge. And there are other no-cost options that we have. We can push the funds to certain cards, and there are other ways that the service can be provided absolutely at no cost to the end user. But it is as simple as that. It is a flat fee. So if you take a $300 early transfer, $349, or again, some employers, it's $299. If you take $100, it's the same fee. If you take $20, it's the same fee.
One more question. How do you handle the tax on those issues? Their wages that obviously are subject to taxation, how is that managed?
So at the end of the pay period, the employer continues to withhold standard withholdings, and so we account for that. So for example, if you've earned a gross $1,000, our software, our program will not let you take a transfer of a full $1,000. It'll account for the fact that there'll be withholding taxes that need to come out at the end of your pay period. So call it, for round numbers, say you'd have access to $700. That would be your daily pay balance that you can draw down. Again, you could do all $700, you could do $50, you could do whatever you'd like, and that fee is only if you do it instantaneously.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman. Senator Barker.
Quick question on this situation. Seems to me that basically the model here is one that would, you're reaching out to the companies that are providing the funds for it. And those companies, in many instances, may have a number of employees who struggle from paycheck to paycheck, and this can help them get from paycheck to paycheck, and also engender the positive benefit of the employee being grateful that the employer helped them in this situation, and they may be less likely to quit their job next week. So are those the types of things that are sort of what makes this system work without having all other types of things in there other than the transfer fees? So.
Thank you for the question, Senator. And yes, we very much view it as an employee benefit that employers can offer to their employees at no cost to the employer.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Opposition?
Good job. Appreciate it.
You're in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Dana Wiggins with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. We are, sorry, Senator Lucas, Mr. Chairman, Senator Lucas, Dana Wiggins with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. We are in support of the study. We think that there are lots of things to be considered. There are multiple kinds of products under this umbrella. And to Senator Norman's point, if somebody is, if you were the employer and you were borrowing directly from your employer, you would just be less that amount when you got your pay those so many days later. And these products are a little bit different from that particular sort of thing. So we just want to make sure, one, that consumers are actually fully protected for all of the types of things under this umbrella. The definitions have been a little bit hard to kind of quantify for both the employer integrated, but also there's two types of employer integrated, and then there's also the direct to consumer and multiple kinds of arms and tentacles. And so we want to make sure that we have a handle on the whole thing.
I'm confused. It seems like you would love this. So just to understand, are you opposed to the fact that they're giving them free money and that they don't charge a fee if you get it overnight? Are you opposed to the fact that if you do take a loan and they can't come back and get them after the fact, that they can't put them into collections, that they actually get to get away with the money free? I mean, I'm mind boggled that you, who I have respect for a lot of other things, that you're opposed to allowing people get their money earlier and not have to pay any fee. And if they don't pay it back, there's no retribution. I'm confused.
We are not opposed to the concept of earned wage access. So just to put that.
What are you opposed to then? Why study?
So how you regulate it is actually important. It's all the details. And the way that the legislation was originally crafted gave us a lot of pause. We've heard from a lot of other entities that are doing the same thing, but lots of different flavors. So we want to make sure that if we're going to regulate, that we regulate it appropriately. We've offered to study from mostly from the beginning, trying to figure out if it's possible to study
Right.
and to make sure that we're getting it right.
Senator Rubenstein, then we're going to vote.
So you'd prefer for it to be unregulated for the next year and for it to be the wild, wild west?
No, as Nicole may have already articulated, they already have sort of an agreement amongst all of the, not all of the providers under the model legislation that was offered here today. I mean, originally, most of the providers are following some of those rules, but not everybody falls under that original sort of umbrella. And so it's sort of making sure that we are all, that everybody who's operating, we know exactly what kinds of products fall under the definition, what doesn't. We also want to make sure that nobody that should fall under the Fairness in Lending Act that was passed in 2020 is trying to use this as a way of getting around. We don't think current providers of earned wage access services are doing that. We want to make sure that it's written in a way to make sure that those others aren't allowed to.
Mr. Chair, I think the way it works is whoever these people are have a contract with the employer and the employee. So a three-party contract.
That's just one type, sir. Mr. Chairman, Senator Edwards, that's one type. So the daily pay is with the employer, but the earn-in model is direct to consumer through their bank account, not through their, you do both, right? But just making sure there is the direct to consumer that's taking money directly out of their bank account. So that's why we just want to make sure the umbrella is correct.
All right, we need to vote.
That's a microcosm of the last month of my life, Mr. Chairman, so I'm really glad you were here for that.
Is there a motion to report the substitute for Senate Bill 1217? Study. All right, there's a motion, a second. All those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay.
I don't know. Okay, but it's that.
Study.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ayes 14-0.
Craig, we do yours yet?
We haven't done it.
Okay.
I've got 1301. I'm going to make it really quick for you. This is a network adequacy bill in light of the fact that we've got a shortage of providers. We're 39th in the country in being able to provide behavioral health service. But issues been raised about this bill by both the private sector, by the plans, and by the DMAS. And so I would ask that we PBI this bill and have the clerk send a letter asking the HERC Commissioner to take a look at the issues raised therein.
Tom, you get that? Yes, sir. Okay. All right, there's a motion to PBI, all those in, with a letter from the clerk to the Health Insurance Reform Commission, right? To study this. All those in favor of that, vote aye. All right.
14-0.
Passed by indefinitely with a letter, 14-0. All right, last bill, Senator Cosgrove, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have Senate Bill 1347. Mr. Chairman, 1347 specifies that services delivered by mobile crisis teams and short-term stays, 7 days or less, at residential crisis stabilization units are covered by commercial insurers, as they are currently under Medicaid. This will require updates to the Virginia mandated benefits coverage for mental health and substance abuse disorders and essential health benefits for commercial health insurance. Mr. Chairman, mobile crisis teams visit and transportation should be covered by commercial insurance as a community-based and less expensive alternative to emergency transportation ambulances, which are already included in essential health benefits. Similarly, short-term bed stays, 1 to 7 days, at residential crisis stabilization units should be covered by commercial insurance as a more appropriate setting and much less expensive alternative to hospital stays and emergency department visits. Mr. Chairman, there are a set of amendments, I believe, that we have to put in the bill.
Move the amendment. Second.
Well, let's hear what they are.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, what this would do, the bulk of the amendment is at the end of line 45, the State Corporation Commission, in consultation with the Secretary of Health and Human Resources, shall convene a work group, including the Commissioner of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, or as a designee, representatives from the Virginia Association of Community Services Boards, the Virginia Association of Community-Based Providers, and the Virginia Association of Health Plans, and other stakeholders, as determined by the Commission. What they will do is they'll come up with a definition of standards of care for mobile crisis response services. They'll look at the licensure or accreditation required for such services to be in the Commonwealth, how cost sharing and deductibles will be addressed as part of this assessing such services for commercially insured individuals. The commission will finish its report no later than September 1st of 2023. It's pretty expedited, but we want to get this benefit in place. Mr. Chairman, those amendments basically push this forward. We all know we have a mental health crisis, not just in Virginia, but in the United States.
No, I understand.
Yep.
All right. Any questions of the sponsor? All right.
Well, let me ask, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Senator Dees.
The amendments put off the implementation of this, of the mandate, or do they just put the mandate out there now and require certain plans to provide the mandate today, but require study?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Senator Dees, yes, what it does, it puts the mandate in there, but it does require the study to be completed by September 1st of this year, and this becomes implemented January 1st of 2024. So that gives them a while to take the recommendations of the study committee.
Okay.
All right. All right. Any other questions? All right. Those in support of the bill? Any opposition? What do you want, that's the insurance industry? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the amendment and a second? All those in favor of adopting the amendment, say aye. Aye. Okay. The amendment's been adopted. Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Heidi Dix with the Virginia Association of Health
Can you
Plans.
get closer to the mic?
Yes, sorry.
And your name?
My name is Heidi Dix. I'm with the Virginia Association of Health Plans. And we are in support of this bill with the amendment. We appreciate working with the administration to get this amendment put in. Normally, this is a mandate that would go to the Health Insurance Reform Commission. We recognize there is a crisis, and so the work group will allow us to study things like the definition of what a mobile crisis team is for commercial payers. It will allow us to look at the network, which we are building right now, and it will also let us look at what balanced billing protections will be in place for folks, because these are emergency services. Thank you.
Okay. So your group's supportive?
Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, just briefly.
Senator Newman.
Just briefly, John, I'm glad you brought this. I mean, I think this is going to save about 95%. If you go to the emergency room, take an ambulance, the cost of this is about 5% of what the big cost is. I mean, we
Yes,
could
sir.
really get a lot more help. And of course, Medicaid, Medicare, they're doing this today, and it's working well, saving their money. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we report the bill as amended.
All right, there's a motion second to report.
Mr. Chairman, my understanding it's got to go to the commission first?
No.
It did not.
Senate Bill
Okay.
1347 with an amendment. All those in favor vote aye. Opposed, nay. All right.
It's worth the wait, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, Bill's report, and I think we finished the docket. Isn't that right, Tom? Yes, sir. All right, we be done.